I'm Burdette. I'm an artist. I make paintings, I make sculptures, I do a little gardening, and I take care of a bunch of cats. My dad did a little painting when I was younger, and I always thought that was really cool. I grew up pretty rural, and whenever I would get bored, I would just go to the sketchbook. I would go down in Dad's workshop, and I would just make stuff. If I was into Transformers or G.I. Joe at the time, I would make those little versions at home just to pass the time. All of the cool stories, comic books, film, just all of that floats around in my head, and I do a lot of daydreaming, and I get inspired by those things, and then I try to find a way to get that out of my head into the studio. I got into the arts right out of art school. I went to Memphis College of Art and Design. Biggest mentor was probably my sculpture teacher back at MCA. He was into wood carving. I transferred into that program, and I had done a lot of wood carving growing up, and he really sort of pushed me to take it from just little wood carvings into fine art and stuff like that. I got a job as a preparator at a local art gallery, and I met a lot of the artists in town, and the Memphis art scene was pretty supportive of young, up-and-coming artists, and that got my foot in the door of a lot of galleries. I've done everything from solo shows to art fairs to farmers markets. I taught a little bit at WSU, but I really kind of like just making stuff here in the studio. Trying to tell a story with visual elements, and I like to use text and imagery that's overlaid, and so where when the viewer interacts with it, they get to bring some of their own experiences based on what some of these elements are. I'm always finding inspiration out in the garden or on walks, little things in nature. I'll see an insect and be like, oh, I can make a cool little alien creature out of that. But just being inspired and turning that into creativity that comes up with an idea, and then I try to realize that here in the studio. Making them is playing with them. Coming up with the pose for the alien, with the storytelling. How can his pose or the way his head's tilted, tell an aspect of the larger story that I'm trying to tell. And so if I make a guy with all these little claws, I'm totally playing by moving them around, as I'm making them. Like trying to be an artist and being a dad at the same time. It's been kind of fun in a lot of ways. I got to introduce the kids to all the old 80s toys that I grew up with. Veronica was really into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Jasper got into some Star Wars, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know, it is challenging. They're around all the time. So I have to stop what I'm doing and then, go into the house and then come back and be like, oh, I didn't cover my paint, now it's all dried up. My daughter and I do a lot of estate sales, and then Naomi and I do some antiquing on the weekends. And yeah, I'm always looking for 80s comic books, old 80s, 70s toys, things that remind me of, experience I had as a kid. Scrap yards, I love scrap yards. I save a lot of things that go into our recycling. Bottle caps, I have a huge bottle cap collection. Soup can lids, make a lot of things out of that. any place that I can find it. I remember I was making some wooden trees, and there for a while, every like wooden chair that I would find on the street, I'd stop over and throw in the back of the truck. The laser guns and laser rifles, there's so many chair legs in there. Because they're just shapes, and you can take, a spindle chair leg, cut it in half, cut sections out, and then you have like little shaped pieces that you can turn into something else. And it's like when I see those chairs, I can see those little pieces, and I'll get real excited. I'm like, cool, I can do that. I can make that with it. I grew up with like little green plastic army men. So they're kind of like little green plastic army men in space. And when I made all the guys with laser guns, because I wanted to make a bunch of guys with laser guns, I then ended up with a whole bunch of guys with laser guns. I said, next batch, they're all gonna have like technology, like radios and equipment and stuff like that. So it's all a process of like, making 12 figures could take 2 months. So I have to get to the rest of the set sort of to tell the story. I think there's a lot of people that grew up with the same movies that I watched, that read the same comic books that like I grew up with. And I think that does come through the work. The pop culture aspect of it, and like where I exist in that, and where other people can then approach it. I like to think of the audience coming to my work, bringing whatever viewpoints they have in their life, and like what their inspirations are, like what connections they have to some of the imagery. And I can like kind of lead it, I can set up a narrative and the storytelling aspects. But I do think that like most people, they do come at it from their perspective, and it does differ sometimes than mine. And I love talking about that, at openings, and seeing like, which way someone comes and approaches like what it is that I'm displaying up there.